Alright, I know some of y'all were actually waiting for this video, but this is the final trump card no item run against the Omega Shenron Shadow Dragons stage. Now, this stage actually did take me a couple of attempts. I feel like, once you kind of look at the team and you actually really try to use this team, you realize that there are inconsistency issues with, like, just dying. I don't know how to say it, really. Um, so this team is just very funny because I feel like it's the thing with this fight is the blue fusions and some of these units that like have dodging, especially like the blue fusion. I'd say you can't use them in this fight, right? The issue with the blue fusions is they have that 4-turn guarantee dodge, right? On turn 4 they guarantee dodge, right, which is really strong. And then if you put them in slot 3, they have the chance to dodge 70% that they get, once they return back to the rotation. You'll be like, hey, I can get that guaranteed dodge, right? That's not something you could use here. And they're two of the stronger units on this team. So you take them away from this team, like, as viable options, and you kind of are trying to, like, not necessarily scrape the barrel, but there's a very small amount of options, because really you kind of have to run physical units, but then the second phase is STR, and then like, okay, let me run some AGL units, but then the first phase is tech that disables evasion. So like, I have to run like AGL Blue Gogeta in this first phase. He can get absolutely creamed, right? Now, luckily right here in this rotation, what happened is we had 17 super twice, right? So the thing about this first Omega stage is that he can actually be attack debuffed, which makes MVP 17 a very helpful unit. Just overall in this run, he's definitely, like, I'd say unironically, like, the MVP. He's able to provide the support, the key. Now in the second phase, especially if he doesn't have his full damage reduction, he can't take a lot of damage, and it got to the point where I almost actually did die because of him. But we were able to get through that, and then we had like a bunch of different avenues to heal, especially like Kai Goku. The fact that this first phase allows you to stack up for quite some time means that we do have the like pretty good healing from same type orbs. One of these E-duos basically get to like 1,000,000 defense. We have Kai Goku's getting up to like 800k defense ranges, right? So things get pretty wild. And then, we obviously do have this Spirit Bomb that we could start charging up while we're in the STR phase to basically let us kind of blow past the int phase, which is very good. So yeah, but the Z duel is like, the thing about this team is that it's also weird for slot 1 units, because this team doesn't really have many slot 1 units like that. It's pretty much Kai Goku. And then, I guess, once GT Duo have their full reduction, kind of, in the final phase, right, you have a little bit of an easier time, because you could run MVP 17 in slot 1. You could run the Dragon Ball Z Duo in slot 1, but, against that second phase, right, it's like AGL Gogeta Blue slot 1, right, you could definitely use them there. I think that's fine, and that's pretty much it. So, it's a very, I think, certain number of characters that you could use here, given obviously the no item run thing, right? I think another option is physical Piccolo is actually going to be pretty good here. I tried him a couple of times, or I'd say a couple of times, more like twice. I did try him twice before I actually hopped into this run and actually put I believe it was Blue Gogeta. I decided to run Blue Gogeta because I feel like there was just a little bit too many physical units. And like right here, like if I was running physical Piccolo, I would have just been dead, right? So I was thinking, okay, how do I best utilize, this? I don't want to get super attacked by Dragon Ball Z Duo. And I was thinking about this, and I was like, okay, we're going to do that for now. Because I feel like he has a 20% chance super, this STR Sin. So I'm thinking, okay, very likely he's just going to super instantly like that. And that's what he did, right? 20% chance is a pretty big chance to kind of get. So if there's going to gamble, I'll do that right there. And it did pay off, and it also does give the Dragon Ball Z Duo more defense in their links, right? It gives them prepared for battle, which is obviously very, very important. You see, make their defense shoot up 30k defense, right? Which is quite a lot, right? And you'll see an example. This unit hits pretty hard, right? Yeah, 25k. I guess I mean this boss. Even though obviously they're full type disadvantage, right? They're at 600k defense, and then they got 3 extra stacks, man. This guy hits for 600k normals on, like, you know, let's say just full type neutral. But you have to keep in mind he's also type disadvantage and class disadvantage, so he's hitting quite hard there, like probably around 800k damage. So yeah, right here I decided to use the standby skill with Z Duo. I'm like, okay, right here I need a slot 1 unit. I'm not running physical Super Vegito slot 1. But speaking of which, Super Vegito, I think he was a fine choice actually. I think that Super Vegito actually did pretty fine here for what like his intended role is to be, which is a floating unit that could tank normals, because not many of these characters, you know, in this fight, like, funny enough, it kind of is a situation where physical Super Vegeta, I feel like he's a little better because of this fight. Because there's not a lot of units that could just guarantee tank some of these normals before they attack. Like, Blue Gogeta, right? There's a lot of these AoEs. You saw those AoE normals even after he attacked, right? He's taking 100k normals type advantage after he super attacks if he doesn't dodge. Like, that's a lot of damage, obviously. And then this guy's healing, it can be really annoying. So as long as he doesn't get tagged, especially in this phase by a super attack, he's able to work just fine. And normals are just absolutely not an issue for him, especially with the AoEs being for 2 phases. And again, this phase, actually, it can hit harder than the final phase with his normal attacks if he gets a super attack off first, which is just really, really devastating. This STR phase is no joke at all, especially considering, again, it's the type coverage. I feel like this phase for this team is definitely harder than the final phase, right? Just because it's STR. But obviously, again, right here, it's like, okay, well, Omega's doing 2 AoEs. I saw what happened with Blue Gogeta last time, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just use the standby for the GT duo. We're just gonna get the Spirit Bomb. It would automatically, obviously, what that means, unfortunately, is that it would just automatically do the Spirit Bomb, so we couldn't really attack with the GT Vegeta to get stats up, or the Blue Gogeta to get some extra damage in. But I feel like I was just gonna die, and there's really no way out. So I was kind of like forced to survive there, which is like, again, Blue Gogeta, like, he's better than most of the other options there, but it's like, if in that situation, if I had Piccolo, like, I would have been alive, but I also would have died early regardless, right? So that's that. I decided to run MVP in slot 1 because he would be able to tank a super, and we saw right here he actually dodged. My MVP 17 dodge build did come in clutch here. See, he wasn't even fully built up, right? So now we're A-okay for the rest of the rotation. And the Dragon Ball Z duo are able to get their full slot 2 passive, the extra attack. Right here, they didn't actually really hit that hard because they're missing some links. They're for sure missing legendary power. I think they're also missing prepared for battle, because if I'm not mistaken, this physical Super Vegeta had prepared for battle. I just have to make sure. Experienced fighters is also missing, right? Which is definitely helpful for their damage. No, he does have prepared for battle. So they were missing experienced fighters and then legendary power, which is a good amount of attack. And it's same warrior race too. That's a good amount of attack there. But yeah, at this point, with how high their defense is stacked, they can't take damage from super attacks. I've seen before my GT duo at 2 dupes. He's able to actually survive Omega Shenron super attack if they have their full passive up and they're getting their triple supers, right? I've seen that before. They're able to eat Omega Super for less than 200k. Now we had Bulma support there, while this time we wouldn't have Bulma support. So this is the funny part, where I'm trying to get the Spirit Bomb to crit. Okay, so I'm like, okay, well, that didn't kill. I want to crit with the Spirit Bomb, because if it did that much damage, the Spirit Bomb would 100% kill if I actually was able to get it to crit. So I'm like, okay, let me just go ahead and restart the app, right? We're just going to move the characters around. And here's a thing that is in the game, right? I technically haven't seen a JP player do this just yet, but I know it's like it's in the global version of the game as well, where it's called crit fishing. And I'm sure some people know, like, okay, you can move the character to another slot, and the other slot they could potentially crit. But it's not just like, okay, slot 1 they can crit, slot 2, let's see if they crit, slot 3, let's see if they crit. Okay, they didn't crit in any 3 slots, they can't crit at all. How crit fishing actually has been discovered to work now is that you could retry an infinite amount of times, and you can keep going back and forth with the units. You just have to move them around like a different amount of times or something. It's very weird. I've seen it happen before though, where, you know, people eventually they're able to crit with the character. It takes a couple of retries, right? Like on this time, I think this is my 4th and final retry, where I'm like, okay, well, let's just keep trying. And then eventually I gave up and I'm like, whatever, we'll just go forward with the rotation, which we'll see. I think this is where we're gonna see that. Either it might be the next one, honestly. I tried a couple of times because I was like really worried that the GT duo are gonna take like too much damage in the AoEs, and then like if like Omega supered me instantly, and then he would like barely kill me because of what I was at. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I think this is where I'm like, I decided to do it because I'm looking at the key and I'm thinking about it. Actually, right here, you know what I did? Right here, I actually looked up the 59 Emma on Twitter, and I looked up for her tweet about it, and then I literally sat down and just scrolled through it and watched it to make sure I was doing it right, because she's the one who discovered it. And yeah, I was doing it right, so I'm just like, okay, well, I'm just getting really unlucky. Because my Z-Duo has 24 crit. I'll show my builds later at the end of the video. But since they have the 24 crit, I'm like, well, did I get that unlucky? Or maybe is it like just not working? Oh, well, I did try it one more time. There it is right there. I thought that was pretty funny. And I decided to keep it in just because, you know, obviously it's part of the recording. I don't want to like necessarily cut the recording up. That'd be kind of sus, right? I guess one other good thing about this team is that you could have the 2 spirit bombs. So I mean, technically, if you do time it properly, like I didn't really time it that well, but you could get a situation where you get 2 spirit bombs off in this fight. Dude, I tried it another time. Oh my goodness, I was like really like, oh my god, I wanted that spirit bomb crit. But you could time it where it's like, okay, you enter the fight with one Z duo, use the spirit bomb, and then you start charging up the other one, and then at the final like the final rotation of the fight, you could end up using the spirit bomb. That could be pretty cool. Another option you could use, actually, I've seen people, I don't think you can use them as a leader for here. I see people run double Turles. I feel like Turles, even without big bad bosses, and just because he has the damage reduction, if you have him as a floater, he might be okay. But I don't know, maybe you would need a big bad bosses unit to pair with him. And I mean, like, will like Turles and like Easy STR Cooler work here? Because the thing about Easy STR Cooler is that he could stack up his defense really, really well. Turles and like Mod Junior, maybe that could be interesting. Like Turles slot 1, Mod Junior slot 2. Obviously the issue would be the like STR phase, but yeah, that's whatever. That's pretty much all I'm thinking. I guess Mod Junior you could just throw on the team, have his giant form. That could be very helpful. But yeah, you see, we did actually end up getting super attacked, but Z-Duo were able to tank it because they have tap advantage and they get the extra defense slot 1. And the GT Duo with their extra offense and then the double super attack, or not, actually they just got a crit. They were able to finish things off, so that is the final trump card mission. Again, it is pretty difficult, I'd say, this mission. It took me a couple of attempts, and I feel like there are limited options, and especially this is just day 1, me trying to no item it, right? If you're using like a Whis and a support memory, that makes things much easier, but I like doing no items just to be like, okay, well, I can no item it with this team, so even though your team may have like less dupes, maybe you have a slightly weaker option, if you're using a double Whis, you have a huge advantage still over like something I'm doing, right? I need to change physical supervision to full dodge, by the way, but I'm done here. Let me know what y'all think about this team, Z-Duo. I mean, some people say, oh, Z-Duo is better now because of this event. What do you guys think about that? Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace out.